Welcome to Jersey Reads the Classics, an audiobook podcast delving into the finest works of our literary masters. Unfortunately, it's read by this woman.
What the hell? Who cares? Let's go on an adventure.
Hello, and welcome back to Jersey Reads the Classics with me, your host, Rosa DeCandia. Well, my friends, as you all know, it is the holiday season, and I'm bringing to you a favorite holiday classic. So without any further ado, let's go on and read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Where we last left off, Ebenezer Scrooge was visited by his dead partner, Jacob Marley, who told him, if you don't change your ways, you're going to end up like Jacob Marley, chained to like safes and things and money that he was all like loving in his real life. And now he regrets it, and there's nothing to save Jacob Marley's soul, but there's still time to save Scrooge's soul. And he told him he's going to be visited by three spirits. So he went to bed, he's scared as shit, and now we're going to move on to the next chapter. Stave 2. I guess that means chapter 2. The first of the three spirits. When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of a neighboring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12. Then stopped. 12. It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have got into the works. 12. He touched the spring of his repeater to correct this most preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12. And stopped. Why, it isn't possible, said Scrooge, that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night. It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun, and this is 12 at noon. The idea being an alarming one, he scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything, and could see very little then. All he could make out was that it was still foggy and extremely cold, and that there was no noise of people running to and fro and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if night had beaten off bright day and taken possession of the world. Once again, very poetic, but very long. This was a great relief, because 3 days after sight of this first of exchange paid to Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, or his order, and so forth, would have become a mere United States security if there were no days to count by. You know, he's always thinking about money. Scrooge went to bed again and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavored not to think, the more he thought. Oh, I hate when that happens. You know, when the people are like, oh, count sheep, or just think of other things. Now, whatever bothers you is still bothering you. So all you're doing is thinking about that same damn thing. So it's futile sometimes. Sometimes it's like, just process whatever you're thinking about and let it be. You know what I mean? When you stop worrying about it, what happens? It goes away. But you know what? Instead of getting all annoyed that you can't change it, just let it be, and you know what? It dissipates, just like anything else in life, because what you resist persists. So forget it. Let it be. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly. Every time he resolved within himself, after mature inquiry, that it was all a dream, his mind flew back again, like a strong spring released to its first position, and presented the same problem to be worked through all through. Was it a dream or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3 quarters more, when he remembered on a sudden that the ghost had warned him of a visitation when the bell tolled 1. Okay, people, see, now he's remembering. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. Yeah, because what happens if he died in the middle of his sleep before the ghost visited him? Then he was going to end up just like Jacob Marley. Okay, the quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length it broke upon his listening ear. Ding dong, quarter past, said Scrooge, counting. Ding dong. Half past, said Scrooge. Ding dong. A quarter to it, said Scrooge. Ding dong. The hour itself, said Scrooge triumphantly, and nothing else. And that's what he thinks. You know what? He's sitting there like, twiddling his fingers. Oh, he gonna get his. He gonna get his. He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did, with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy one. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge, starting up into a half-recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them as close to it as I am now to you, and as I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. See, I'm kind of wearing like the Ghost of Christmas Past, whatever. Like, you know, one of the visitors. Okay. It was a strange figure, like a child. Yet not so like a child, as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white, as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, like me. That's what I like to say. Like me, no wrinkles here. And the tenderest bloom was on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular. The hands the same, as if its hold were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were like those upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. Oh my God, here we go. On the very big details of what the ghost of this little man-child is wearing. Sounds like he's beautifully clothed. I love that he's old, but not old, because remember, he's an old spirit, but has a childlike quality, just like me. That's what I said. Hey, okay, where was I? Because I'm getting all forcocked over here. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and, in singular contradiction of that wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using in its duller moments a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Oh, so it's got like a halo or something. You know, when they say, turn on your heart light, turn on your headlight, it's got its own headlight. Even this, though, when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality, for as its belt sparkled, well, you know I'd love that, and glittered now in one part and now in another, and what was light one instant at another time was dark, so the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts no outline would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. And, in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. So this thing is playing some visual manipulations on Scrooge, because once again, it's a being of light, it's a spirit, but I do love how it can be turning into different things. They never show that in the cartoons or the movies. They show it as like a childlike spirit. Okay. Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me? Asked Scrooge. I am. That voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if instead of being so close beside him, it were at a distance. Who and what are you? Scrooge demanded. I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past? Inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish stature. No, your past. Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him. But he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered. What? Exclaimed the ghost. Would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? Is it not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap and forced me through the whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow? Oh, damn, he's just like, listen, bitch, you're the reason I'm here, and I have to have this cap because of you, so shut the fuck up, Scrooge. Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend or any knowledge of having wilfully bonneted the spirit at any period of his life. He then made bold to inquire what business brought him here. Your welfare, said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately. Oh God, it also reads your thoughts. That's scary. Your reclamation then. Take heed. It put out its strong hand as it spoke and clasped him gently by the arm. Rise and walk with me. It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that bed was warm, and the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad by lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication. See, he was like, it's too cold, I ain't going to go out there. But you know what? The hand came for him and is taking him. I am immortal, Scrooge remonstrated, and liable to fall. There, but a touch of my hand there, said the spirit, laying it upon his heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this. As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open country road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it was to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold winter day with snow upon the ground. Good heavens, said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light and instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. He was conscious of 1,000 odors flowing in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares long, long forgotten. I love that. Do you ever notice how your sense of smell is very strong, right? You got the 5 senses that can present you with memories. I know for me, I'll walk into a place and literally it'll bring me back to the house I grew up in, like the basement when we first moved in. It had a certain smell, not a bad smell, but something and I was 4.5. And even though I don't have many memories through my brain, but the sense of smell for me, it brings me back to memories. So that's a very pretty picture. The odors are bringing back his thoughts and hopes from when he was young. Okay, this is getting good. This is getting good. Okay. Your lip is trembling, said the ghost. And what is that upon your cheek? Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. You recollect the way? Inquired the spirit. Remember it, cried Scrooge with fervor. I could walk it blindfold. Strange to have forgotten it for so many years, observed the ghost. Let us go on. They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them with boys upon their backs, who called to other boys in country gigs and carts driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. Oh, this is so pretty. It's very poetic. These are but shadows of things that have been, said the ghost. They have no consciousness of us. The travelers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten and his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other a Merry Christmas as they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas, what good had it ever done to him? The school is not quite deserted, said the ghost. A solitary child neglected by his friends is left there still. Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. This is breaking my heart, because we know who the lonely child is. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick with a little weathercock-surmounted cupola on the roof and a bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were little used. Their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more attentive of its ancient state within, for entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold, and vast. There was an earthy savor in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight and not too much to eat. Wow, so basically, we're in a shithole of a hall and rooms and offices in the schoolhouse. And basically there's not enough to eat and there's a little candlelight and it's dark. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form and wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and scuffle from the mice behind the paneling, not a drip from the thawed water spout in the dull yard behind, not a sigh among the leafless boughs of one despondent poplar, not the idle swinging of an empty storehouse door. No, not a clicking in the fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence and gave a freer passage to his tears. Oh my God. Scrooge. Yep. Okay. Poor Scrooge, but not poor Scrooge. You know how I said in one of the episodes that Scrooge is obviously triggered by Christmas? And here's a trigger, friend. He obviously during Christmas time was sitting all alone, poor, alone in the quietude of life. And as he looks back of his forgotten childhood, he weeps. And that is a weeping, my friend, that he's probably never wept before. That is unhealed childhood trauma. Now, unhealed childhood trauma shows up in so many different ways. We've talked about this. And the thing is this, everything that has happened that we think that has happened to us, we store somewhere in our memory. Whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and there is a memory and even in our cells that we hold on to. And if it goes unprocessed or not felt or worked through, what happens, it shows up in your future relationships, or something will happen with the relationship or a friendship or at a job, or someone will say something or someone will do something, and all of a sudden you're so triggered that you react in a way that it's totally not even that is even look, why would you react that way to something that was not even that big? And that's because it's a trigger. So I think what's interesting, and I think it's important for all of us to note, if there's stuff in you that you're holding on to that you have yet to process, and if you're in therapy doing that, that's fantastic. Because, going back and looking at our past sometimes is not the prettiest thing. And I'm not a therapist. This is just kind of my own journey. And I know recently I told you this, a few weeks ago. I had a lot of childhood trauma with being bullied and what have you. And when I made amends with it, and I was realizing we were kids. No one really was meaning it to be mean. I released it. Took me some time. I really let it process. And I was like, why are you holding on to this? Why is it? Because every time somebody in my current life would do something, I automatically thought it wasn't that they were bullying me. They were disloyal, because I had a thing about loyalty and stuff. And I lost friendships over it, or I dropped a friendship because I was triggered. And what I'm just going to encourage you to think about is just think about the things that you're holding on to that no longer serve you. Okay? Because having good memories of childhood, you want to hold on to that. That's nostalgia. And we've all been hurt in our childhood. I mean, come on. Our parents did the best they could with who they were, where they were. Also, you know what? This is humanity. We've come here to experience a journey. But things happened for you so you could grow. And if there are things you're still holding on to, I just want to encourage you to release them and process them. Now, when I say release them, it doesn't mean like, all right, they're done. Feel the feelings, forgive the people, forgive yourself most especially, because you thinking you deserved it, you don't deserve it. What happens once you start throwing light and love on the situation? Now remember, this is doing it in a very surface level. Now, if you really need to process childhood trauma, and trust me, I've had other childhood trauma. So, if you need to process real deep stuff, please go to a therapist. Go to somebody that can really help you work through stuff. Because if it is preventing you from living your life, my friends, then you definitely need to work through it. So this is not a therapy band-aid. This is not a therapy session. This is, if there's some crap that's still residual in your life that really you're just like, yeah, what? Think about the littlest things that you're like, yeah, I don't know why that triggered me. You were a kid. You didn't know. You weren't mature. You didn't know. So let that go. Forgive yourself for feeling those things. Forgive the others, because I'm telling you, we've talked about this. When you forgive others, it's not for them, it's for you. But when you forgive yourself, that is for you. But I digress. The point is this. I just am going to encourage you to think about the things that you think may be really big from your childhood. And I'm saying little things that you're holding on to that really serve no purpose in your life. And once you send light and love to it and forgiveness and process the feelings and move on, what happens? It opens up space in your life for other great things to enter. So it's really about taking out the clutter, like Marie Kondo says, right? If it doesn't bring you joy, exactly. If this emotion situation it no longer brings you joy, and it doesn't, it's taking up clutter. So remove it. Do the process you need to do. And processing, once again, is if it's deep stuff, please do talk therapy or do whatever sings to you to have, to release it. Or if you can release it and it's not horrible that you're just like, yeah, I can actually see that person with light and love and forgive them for what they've done. And I can forgive myself first and foremost for thinking I deserved it or I brought it upon myself. Because remember, most of the things that happened to us in childhood, we never did things to receive that. If it's abuse and such like that, you've never done anything to receive that. You have never done anything to warrant someone to abuse you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Please know that. Okay, so that to me is also important stuff. If there is a lot of abuse that you're holding on to, please, 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 I can't say it enough, go to therapy, whatever you need to do to work through it and release it, because it's so healing to release anything that is just cluttering your heart, cluttering your life, because you want to stay open to the beautiful gifts that the universe wants to give to you. And also, you want to just be a happier person and more peace-filled and have serenity and calm. And during this time, COVID, a lot of us are sitting at home and we're thinking, we're staying up like Scrooge, and we're thinking and we're thinking and we're thinking. And now's a good time to release the shit that no longer serves you, right? If it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it, like Marie Kondo says. So on that note, my friends, I know this is not easy work. No one's saying it is. Once again, this is not therapy. This is just processing stuff. And even now, if you're feeling triggered by stuff, you may even want to, if you're feeling triggered by stuff, think about what is triggering you and why whatever situation currently has annoyed you, why it's the trigger. Where's this trigger coming from? Because I will tell you something. To get rid of all this crap, it makes you freer. It really does. And then life changes and the perspective where you live your life completely changes. And then what happens, you're vibrating on a different frequency and vibration. So other things that are meant to come to you can come to you because you're no longer bogged down and cluttered with crap that doesn't serve you. All right, my friends, I've said enough. Okay, my friends, I am wishing you well, and I'm sending you tons of light, love, peace, bliss, abundance, prosperity, magic fairy dust, and all the goodness that you deserve, because you are worthy, you are enough, you are loved, and someone is thinking about you. I know I'm having an emotional week. You know what I'm saying. And just remember, I will talk to you soon. And until we read again.